a young player came in at number 6 for India, Virat Kohli, and ripped a few past the outside edge. And I always wonder if I'd just taken that outside edge, whether he'd been discarded for the rest of his career.
What a
I
sliding
wondered
doors
if that was going to happen. It didn't. I didn't take the edge. And just a few overs later, I actually strained a muscle. So it just happened suddenly. I'm on top of the world, enjoying bowling in the best spin conditions ever, all of those things. And it was suddenly set back.
Bryce McGain, welcome to Sacks, and you're in very fine fettle still, and you're still playing at 53, aren't you?
I am, Dan. Yeah, look, thanks for having me on. Appreciate the invitation. A little nervous about what lies ahead, but no, still getting around and enjoying cricket. That's probably been the part of my life is purely enjoying playing the game that I love. So I'm still doing that on the wrong side. Well, approaching 50 from the wrong direction, if I can put it that way.
Give us a plug, Bryce. Where are you playing at the moment?
Playing at Mornington Cricket Club. So I started there as a 10-year-old. So it's really nice to, I guess, bookend my cricket by going back there. So terrific group of young guys, little inexperienced, but I'm sort of up in that, I suppose, with the age factor and getting the age demographic a bit higher. But we're in the top division now, where Mornington had been for about 150 years. We won a premiership last year, which was a lot of fun with the guys, and hopefully going one better in maybe a year or two.
And premierships 32 years apart, is that right?
Yeah, that is right, yeah. So I won one when I was 21, and then, you do the math, and won now. But once I won that premiership at 21, I then went on to Premier Cricket and, kicked off a whole lot of learning before playing first-class cricket.
But I'm guessing that when you bowled to Sachin Tendulkar recently, that wasn't in the Morning Peninsula.
Well, I must say, for the final series, playing against, we had Rosebud in the grand final. It was not a bad preparation bowling to Tendulkar and Lara in the Masters League that I did in February. So it was a beautiful little building to get to have a crack at Rosebud in the final.
Talk us through the journey of a young Bryce McGain. What was life like? I mean, I suppose you sort of only really burst into public consciousness well into your 30s, but there's a long way to get there before then. Can you talk us through, growing up?
Yeah, many people have said, you're an overnight success and it took you 25 years to do that. So that is true. Look, I grew up in Mornington, and it's a terrific place to grow up, and lots of beach cricket. We've got the best sandbars going around. Mills Beach in Mornington. Don't share that. We like to keep it a secret. But that's where I grew up, on the beach and playing cricket. And I just loved it. I honestly just loved it. Going to the Mornington Cricket Club helped me at 10 years old. And unfortunately, my father died when I was 6. So Mum would sort of drop me off, or she'd have a carload of all the kids. She was always involved in bringing the teams around. We'd have, 7 guys all piled in the back with their cricket gear and bats sticking out windows, and off we'd go to the games as under 12s, under 14s, and had a lot of fun. And those sort of things just stuck with me. So I just really love the game of cricket, and it didn't get lost on me when I started playing professionally either. So it was, I'd use a lot of visualisation, which I learnt to do, and a lot of that was going back to, why am I doing this? Well, I do it because I really love it, and a lot of those memories of playing cricket on a Saturday morning with wet feet because the grass is wet and not mowed, and all those things, you remember, why you do it, and that was the fun bit of cricket.
You're not getting much grip on those sandbars with your tennis ball. So why did you choose leg spin?
Well, good question. You throw your arm out trying to skim the soggy tennis ball on those, but I don't know. I honestly don't know. And in talking to other spinners later on, like Stuart McGill and Warne and those guys who I got to play against and with and things like that. We sort of asked the cricket, why do you do it? And we don't know. I think it's just something that happened. When I played schoolyard cricket and people would bowl with a tennis ball, they could bowl as fast as they want, but I found it so easy to hit, like it's not doing anything. So it was probably just a crafty strategy of going, well, I don't get hit around, I can spin the ball and do a few different things, and it makes it harder for them to hit it, so I'm less chance chasing the ball in the schoolyard. So I think it started a bit like that, and look, there weren't too many role models at that time. You weren't watching a lot of cricket and going, oh, well, that's a leg spinner I want to be. It's a little different for the generation that followed, obviously with Warne and all that. Everyone, it was inspired, but it was a bit of a unique path, and I'm not sure I got the answer for you.
And then you touched on the first premiership at Mornington, all the 132 years apart. then you moved on to Premier Cricket, and what was that like? What was your career like? I suppose in the 90s. I mean, said before you really burst onto the scene from Victorian perspective.
Yeah, so I then went to Frankston Peninsula. It was the first season they were in Premier Cricket, and so I played there for 7 years. But for there, it was just a massive learning. So the gap from community-based hard wicket cricket at Mornington and in a very competitive competition. Mornington Peninsula competition's very competitive and good standard, and they have always performed really well at Country Week, so they're right at the very top end of, I guess, community cricket. But there was a huge gap to Premier Cricket, and I had to learn so much. It took me 6 games to get 1 wicket in Premier Cricket. So things like that, I just had to, and I just built this resilience of being a leg spin. It's pretty uncool. If it's one-day cricket, we're not playing the spinner, so you're out. So I got dropped more times than probably I got promoted. I was just up and down all the time, from the first to the seconds, all the time. But it helped me learn a lot. It helped me learn about the game. It helped me learn about what I need to do. I was an observer, so I'd then see who's doing well, not necessarily in Premier Cricket, but I see what spinners are doing well internationally and learn from that. What an insight it was when they started putting the speeds up on TV, and I went, oh, that's not a bad idea. What if I change my pace? Oh, that works pretty well, and I started taking more wicket. Things like that, little things like that. So I'm proud of saying, as much as there were people helping along the way and had some good advice, I'm kind of self-taught in that I was doing things and learning and going, oh, I'll try that. And so I had to work out a lot of things. It was only till 28, so late in my time there, that I got my first real bit of coaching, where I went and got sent away as a bit of a replacement for someone who wasn't going. It was to a spin week at the academy in Adelaide. The last year was in Adelaide. Terry Jenner was there. Kerry O'Keefe was there, who was coaching. Ashley Mellett, who's written a lot of books about spin coaching. And it just helped align what I was doing. And so all the learning that I did to that point was great. But I wish I'd known a whole lot of this stuff when I was 16, and they just sorted it out. And it took them 3 days to talk to me, as in the coaches. They were just watching and observing, and they said, look, Bryce, I'm 28. All the other academy guys, these are the best players in Australia. This is Adam Voges, Dave Hussey, all that era. They're all 18, 19, 17, and they're going, who is this old bloke at 28 hanging out here? Like, really, it was just that unfashionable. But when they told me the things that I needed to work on, funnily enough, I was able to put them right into play, and 18 months later, I debuted for Victoria. So it made it changed my life. What Terry Jenner and Kerry O'Keefe and the time they spent in that week, it changed my life because they aligned to the things that I needed to do to be a better spin bowler.
Can you take us through, there's kids watching, I'm sure, who want to bowl spin. What does it take to be a leg spin bowler? Like, what are the points that you really need to hit to be a successful leg spin bowler? Yeah,
so what Terry Jenner was a really good technical coach. So he was exceptional at and probably a bit over the top in terms of getting the right body movements and things like that. But what he taught was about alignment, so being side on to your target and finishing side on. So that was pretty important. He also spoke about huge spin. So he had a pretty good protege in Shane Warne, who he coached, of course, who could spin it more than most. He had biceps on his spinning fingers and things like that, so it was ridiculous. But he spoke about huge spin and how to do that. So it's understanding that it's a finger flick and a wrist snap. So then that lit up a bit of a fuse in my mind. Okay, well, that's how we do it. And then working on that. So then I had to work out, well, how do I get more and more spin? Huge spin, obviously, it's not only what happens off the pitch, but it's what happens in the air beforehand. And that's the bit that I learnt a lot out of that week, was the ability to start moving the ball around in the air. And I guess it was a little later on, I kept on looking for these. It just lit up my mind to absorbing all these things. Later on, I love American sports and watching baseball and how a curveball pitcher's doing this and doing that. Bruce Yardley, who was on that particular trip, he bowled, he was a baseballer, and he said, all I started doing is bowling off spin, and I'm bowling these curveballs and letting it pitch and do all that. And I went, hang on, that unlocked another part. So I just delved into doing that. A neighbour of mine, a guy called John Hussey, didn't play in the major league, but went over and played AAA and was a pitcher. And he was a neighbour as a kid. He was 15 years younger, but I went and spoke to him about, how do you throw your curveball? Why do you do that? So then it started working on the ball, moving in the air before it pitched. And I think that then became part of my success in understanding how that ball moved. Warne had a great word for it. He called it presentation, how the ball gets presented to the batter. I love that stuff. Warne had so many great inputs to just little conversations that we had along the way. And once he retired, obviously that gave me a bit of an opportunity to resurge into Victoria. But he was always really helpful. And once you start talking leg spin, it was we're kindred spirits, I suppose, that we just really connected around those types of things. And he gave great input later on in my career.
Touch on Warne probably a little bit later, but
yeah.
Kerry O'Keefe, we see him as the funny man and all that, but he obviously incredible cricket brain and experience. What was he like at that stage? And do you have any memories in particular about what he might have taught you, or just being in the orbit of Skull?
Yeah, well, look. It was entertaining. He was good fun, and as many people who just meet him for the first time, particularly the 17, 18, 19-year-olds who were in the academy, are sort of going, this guy's crazy. But he was really entertaining, and he uniquely spun the ball off his middle finger, so it was a little bit unique how he bowled his leg spin, where Warne used his third finger, and that's more the traditional way. But he was able to just understand that, that's how he did it. He said he was never a prolific spinner of the ball, but he worked on goal, change of pace, control, all those types of things. So he gave a lot of great input there. Every year after he did that, and every year I played at the SCG, he would come to the Shield game. He would say hello. He just had an interest in cricket, and you can see that now in his commentary. He has a great sense of humour, and he's very, very funny and a great entertainer. We have all that, but his cricket mind is really, really powerful, and his connection to the people I guess he has an influence over, and I've really valued the fact that he would do that, take his time, make sure he came to the dressing room, and so he was just so polite and all those things, and I was just, sometimes overwhelmed that, he would keep doing that year on year on year when I wouldn't be expecting it, but a wonderful man, had an enormous influence on what I did.
Now, you mentioned your Shield debut in 2002, but before that was an international debut for Denmark.
It was. It's interesting you say that. Not too many cricketers are dual internationals, but I did do that. Look, I went over it, and it was 2002, 2003, and I had an opportunity to go over there and play, but coach. And I wasn't sure how coaching would sit with me. I'd always just been a player. Going about my stuff. So it's early on. And so, it gave me an opportunity to go over there and coach from the top to the bottom of a club. Cricket isn't on TV there. There's a lot of young Pakistani families and some Indian families, but a lot of the Pakistani families were watching Afridi bat in one-day cricket. So they thought that's how you play cricket. It's like, you're just there belting the ball everywhere. So they just saw highlights and wanted to play that way. But I really enjoyed coaching, they called them the mini puds. They were the little kids at under 12s. The lily puds are just a little bit older than that. They were under 14s, and then the under 16s in the senior group. So it really ignited my passion for it. And then I got a little bit involved with the national team as well. So it came about, they were playing in what they used to call the Cheltenham and Gloucester Cup, and they could have an international player, and that was played in England, and it was a qualifier for that. So I went over there and played a game for Denmark, which was terrific, and we had a great time. I even made a 50 in that game, so underrated was my batting ever since then.
Seen you bat, you're still quite handy, certainly in some media games in Sri Lanka. But this is all happening against the backdrop where you are still you are not a cricketer per se. I mean, you're not a professional cricketer by any stretch. You're a banker. You've got a young son.
Yeah.
You're still playing some amateur footy at the time, local footy. Yeah. How's the rest of your life going at this stage?
Well, I guess footy. I played footy till I was 29. Didn't help my cricket one bit, but I loved it. And I probably, as I was going through my 20s, and even I probably loved footy a bit more, to be perfectly honest. I just didn't have the frame to survive, I don't think, for too long. But I just really loved it, and I played for Mornington, and then later on for Sylvan. I went to go up there for 1 year and stayed for 5,
and won 3 best and fairest.
Well, yeah, and I enjoyed it. And we had a terrific group up there. Not too successful as a club. We played a few finals and won some, but it was was just so enjoyable. And I guess that's what I did. And I'm finding that now later in my life is finding the fun bits and going for them. And cricket was always fun. It was never stressful. I never necessarily saw it as a job. But you're right. I was balancing a lot of masters at the time. And one of those was working with one of the major banks initially in finance and then later on into IT and doing projects and things like that. And so the balance of it all and trying to fit it all together and do the necessary physical preparation. So I'd be, gym in the morning, leaving home at 4:30 to go and do a gym at work and then going to work. And at stages I was then sliding into a bit of second 11 for Victoria as well. So it meant I had to go and train. Training's, of course, in the middle of the day. So I'd work early, go to training, then work later at night. So I was balancing all these different things. And so it was... When I look back at it, I'm not quite sure how I did it, but I made it work somehow.
It's an interesting one when you then become into your 30s and you can turn your focus completely to cricket. So how did that change happen? You talk about it's sort of like a long time to become an overnight success, but when did that switch happen?
Well, within me... I always believed. So I always believed, I can do that, I can get better. And I was on this constant growth, learning all the time. And as I gave you some examples, but it was, so there were times when I, playing Shield cricket, I'd be playing and they'd always room Dirk Nannis and myself. He's running his own business, sending travel people to a chalet in Japan. And I'm there trying to do my job as a project manager and a product manager in IT for one of the banks and getting project work done. With the bank we had it outsourced to India. So we had probably about 1,500 workers in India who were doing a lot of the technical IT things. But once they started seeing me on a Fawn Ranger Cup that's getting beamed into India, suddenly the interest in working on my projects was a little bit higher. So meeting my KPIs was off the charts. I was delivering under time, under budget because these workers in India just wanted to be involved in my project. So it was a bit of a competitive advantage in my workplace. But it just came... It just became too much, and then I was offered a contract, and that probably helped. Saying, okay, well, I can go and do that, but I had to. I needed to know that it was for a period of time. I couldn't just go, oh, well, it might be for a few games, and then you're out. And so that was the balance and the decision I needed to make. So I had to be really honest with Cricket Victoria and Sean Graff, who was the general manager there, and say, look, I just need to know, like, is it a year or is it 2 years? 2 years would be great because then I can stop that and really have a crack. So he was helpful in shedding a bit of light on that for me.
And you touched on Warne. I suppose Warne, his retirement is such and where you fit in the pecking order in Victoria is such a central theme to your career and I suppose the opportunities that presented. What was he like playing with him, being around him, and then I suppose what did his retirement do for your career? Yeah,
so in 2007, Australia won the Ashes. Warne was on top of the world, and then before the second last test, he just said at Melbourne, he goes, well, that's going to be it. And it was a shock to everyone, including Cricket Victoria. They panicked and went, well, who do we play? So they were expecting him to come back for the rest of the Shield season. He was flying at that time. He was nearly at the peak of his powers, but he just stopped and he'd had enough. So that created the opportunity. From that then, our captain, Cameron White, went to play one-day cricket for Australia and slotted into the white ball lineup at that stage. And so they then went, well, where do we go? And so they'd relied on Whitey being able to bowl a lot of the overs at that stage as a young captain and doing that. So they then turned to me. And, I honestly knew that it's probably, you get one go at this. We were playing in Sydney. It was the first game after the sort of Christmas time. The Ashes are secured. Okay, we go there. And so I just prepared for that one game. I just went, okay, well, I've got to give my absolute best here. So it was fortunate. I ended up taking 6 wickets in the game, and I like to say from then on, I just created headaches for the selectors, to be perfectly honest, because completely unfashionable. I plugged a hole for a little bit, but then I I really put everything into it. So I was getting better physically. I was bowling better and better. I was learning more and more, sourcing lots of different information about how to perform later on. There were selectors saying, how are your calves, how are your hamstrings? Oh, I bet you pull up sore. And I'm going, no, I'm not, because I'm doing more work than most. So I just worked really hard at it and just loved it. I just really thrived in it. It was my dream. I'd believed in myself, but I'd constantly felt that I had to keep proving myself to the next person, the next coach, the next selector, even teammates. So I constantly I found it difficult to break in there, and it wasn't through the lack of belief in myself, but ultimately when it happened, I think then others started believing and trusting a lot.
That belief to play for Victoria is one thing, but when did the belief that you could play for Australia come in? Because every park cricketer dreams of playing for Australia, wearing a baggy green. When did that really kick in as like, this is something that could be in my future?
Well, you're spot on with what you said. We all had the same dream as a kid. When I'm chucking balls at Mills Beach, as a kid, that's exactly what I was doing. I was doing exactly that in the nets, just mucking around, having fun with my mates at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That age, we all had the same dream. And I guess once that performance, and I'm grateful for Dave Hussey in that game, because Cameron White went up to go and play for Australia. Huss just said to me, look, you've been doing this for Paran forever. You're dominant. The pitch is the same length. And it's just going to help you a whole lot more. It's the SCG. It's heaven for spin bowlers. And that's what I found out. It was too. I couldn't believe how long this has been going on. Wickets had actually turned. This is outrageous. So I love that. And he just said, no, I trust you. You run your strategy. I'll come up with a few different ideas. Ronnie's pretty handy at some ideas at slip as well. And, we'll come up with some ideas. But you just go and execute what you do well. And I just thought, how good's that? He trusts me. And they're just little things like that along the way that absolutely helped. And from that moment, I didn't immediately then go, oh, well, I can play for Australia. I just wanted to do really well for Victoria. If I played 3 games for Victoria, 1 game for Victoria, as a kid, they were our idols. We really looked up to them. And, Simon O'Donnell and all that era, Dean Jones and all the players, to just wear that Victorian cap I was so proud. And then my teammates really started trusting me in the way that they trained, the way that our net session was that competitive, but it was also exploratory. We'd be sharing ideas. We'd be talking about around the week. I hadn't bowled into foot marks ever, So just learning all those little nuances. Or if you do this, that's hard. So I spent a lot of my learning then working with Hodge, Hussey, White, these guys that played, Andrew McDonald, and talking about what's hard. What's hard for spin bowlers? And they spoke about lengths and things like that and change of pace and just how I can best use my skill to be a challenge. And once you're sort of working with a group like that, the belief continues to grow and getting results and spinning Victoria to victory at different times and sometimes just playing a holding role and being appreciated for doing that because we had such a good group of fast bowlers as well. Sometimes that was my role. So it was a good time.
For such a long time, there's no way in for a spinner in Australia because you've got Shane Warne and then you've got Stuart McGill. But then the selectors have been banking on McGill sort of holding up an end, so to speak, for a couple of years. And then his body breaks down. He retires mid-tour in the West Indies. Bo Casson plays. You've just had an outstanding Sheffield Shield season, and suddenly things really open up for you. When did you realise, gee, I'm really on here, and you get called up for Australia A, and then eventually for that test tour in India?
Yeah, and I guess it was just performing. So when I had that particular season and was consistent and made the Shield Team of the Year, there were actually inquiries. Cricket Australia were coming together going, spin's dying. The spin bowlers aren't dying. We're bowling part-time spin. It's about fast bowlers. The wickets are dead. Bring in Warne. They have a big conference up in Brisbane. What's going on? We need to help spin bowling. It's dying. And while all that was going on, and I think it was just a matter of, you reap what you sow, and, we investing in the coaching, and we doing those types of things, and we nurturing the next generation, we teaching them the strategy, not just the technical. So there was a lot to it. Wickets were pretty dead because fast bowlers were doing pretty well. Why bowl the spinner? So a lot of those things were factors in it. But while all that was going on, I was performing. And so that gave me a lot of confidence where other spinners are really struggling on these wickets that, and the challenges and players being more aggressive. I was succeeding. So that gave me a lot of faith. I did go and I had the opportunity with Australia A to go to India. And that was probably when I went, I might be pretty close here. It was nice to make a team of the year, but then getting that opportunity and going to India and even just bowling in the nets there before the game. And it was just I just felt so good about it. I couldn't believe wickets that could do what they do. They're dry, they're dusty. We played in Bangalore, Chinnaswamy Stadium. I'd taken 3 of the first 4 wickets in the first tour game, the first game for Australia A. And I was just on top of the world. Like, really, I was just thinking, and I was looking around, and that's how I often was, just going, how good is this? Like, can you believe you're here? So it kept me present through all those types of things. A young player came in at number 6 for India, Virat Kohli, and ripped a few past the outside edge. And I always wonder if I'd just taken that outside edge, whether he'd been discarded for the rest of his career.
What a I
wondered if that was going to happen. It didn't. I didn't take the edge. And just a few overs later, I actually strained a muscle. So it just happened suddenly. I'm on top of the world, enjoying bowling in the best spin conditions ever, all of those things. And it was suddenly set back. I strained my lat muscle and under the back of my armpit. And that's just because I internally rotate my arm, and it just happened. I guess it's like overstretching where, anyone can do a hamstring, I suppose, at any particular time. And, overstretching, putting in so much effort and power that I was trying to put into my action, and it just popped. And I didn't know at that time that it was quite as serious, and then it was into a bit of rehabilitation. But it then stepped into a selection for Australia in a tour that started 6 weeks later. But I was still in recovery mode at that stage.
So that was talking about sliding doors moments. That was a sliding doors moment in your career. Top of your game, you get an injury that sets you back, and you miss that tour of India.
Yeah.
What was the disappointment, or did you just feel like it's just a setback? We go again.
Yeah, I'm probably, when I reflect on it now, I would think, you're shot, you're done, and that would be true. So I ended up going on the tour, and I guess they'd seen enough in that little pocket of the 2 games that I was going to play with Australia A. They'd seen enough in that first one. Okay, we want to take him, and I was rehabilitating through and working through it. And it's probably a 6-week injury, and then I got on that tour and probably wasn't at my best, but I was still bowling a bit and working my way back in with the physios. And it got to, I'd been there a week, and we played in a couple of, little games and 2-day things, and hadn't necessarily been at my best. And I just said honestly to myself, you got to bowl properly. You got to give everything. You can't just bowl within yourself. You got to use your power, and you got to let it go. You just got to trust it. And I did that, and then I felt it just go pop, like it exploded. And so the back of my armpit, and so then I knew straight away. I was in a net session, and it was Phil Jakes, and he was doing a batting test, I suppose, with his back, and he had all those challenges. So I'm bowling to him, and I just said, I bowled a ball, and it was, a faster ball. And as a spinner, you need to have that range of speeds. You can't just be in one little pocket. And so I just went for that faster delivery and just went, boop, and I felt it. And I just said, oh, that's it, I'm done. And they went, well, what do you mean? What did you feel? And I said, no, it has popped. And as people do hamstrings and pop hamstrings or calves and all that, they actually you can feel it within your body. It's a real thing. So I knew that I was sort of gone then, and came back, and then it was surgery. And look, sliding doors moments, disappointment. But then the next day it was, okay, well, how do I get this sorted? And, it was an exciting injury for Greg Hoy and the team. Greg Hoy, a famous surgeon who worked on Shane Warne's shoulder and all that. I knew I was with the best. But the injury that I'd done hadn't been documented that much at all. And so they had to reattach it like they reattach a hamstring. There's probably only 5 cases around the world of this particular injury. They were looking through baseball and researching how they did the operation. they were that excited. So when I went in at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning when no one's really doing surgery, but they were all in to do it, there was a team of probably 8 surgeons in there, all excited, students. Even Trevor James, the doctor, who goes around and helped out with Cricket Australia and all that, he was in there behind a mask, and I'm going, what are you doing here? Everyone was that excited. Less so me being, what I'm missing out on. But, it was one of those funny things. But I knew from then it was just, okay, you need to recover. And I knew that I was working with the best surgeons around to help me.
So Cameron White plays all 4 tests in India, which end up being the only 4 tests he plays. Jason Frazier comes in and takes 12 for in that final test in India, which is sort of the famous one. And then he gets a little bit of a look in over the summer, but all the while Horrocks comes back for a bit. They still can't settle on the spinner. And you've got South Africa tour and Ashes tour coming up. But you're 36 at this point.
Yep.
What's the road back, and what was that summer like as you tried to push your claim for those two tours, I suppose?
Yeah, for me, it was just coming back to Victoria, and I was just present to that and coming back and bowling. When I came back, I was just really weak. That's what it was. Just that area, the range of speeds were really weak. I played a club game, and I reckon I was bowling 40 k's an hour. They were just lobbing them up. It was my teammates were saying, "You're bowling in a school zone. Like, get your speed up. Can you get the speed up?" So look, they were my Paran teammates. Always good fun, but. Look, it just took me a bit to get back into it, and it wasn't through the lack of work and physical preparation and all those things. But I came back and I played a couple of one-day games. I played a Shield game, and I was pretty fortunate. South Australia were looking to set something up, I think. And look, I took 5 wickets, a couple caught in the boundary as they were pretty. But it was nice to get a 5-fer, and that's lovely. But deep within, I probably knew I wasn't necessarily at my best, but, looking forward to, finishing off the season with Victoria. And, again, we were playing some really good cricket and winning lots of games. So a Shield final was on the horizon. And that's probably all I was thinking about.
But picked for the South African tour, which was in March that year.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but was it too early?
Yeah, in hindsight, yeah, it was. And again, as I shared, it was the speeds that I couldn't bowl. I didn't have the range of speed, so it took all my power to bowl at normal speed. So I could get to 80, low 80s, I suppose, and that was everything, where generally you could go up to a 95 and push up to 98. And what that does is, it just challenges the batters. The ball arrives a bit earlier, and, so you can work a strategy. So part of it's nearly, like trying to play the piano with one hand tied behind your back. You don't have your range, and, you can play a nice melody, but, can you really, do a virtuoso performance? Probably not. And not that I was ever trying to do that bowling leg spin, but look, that's how it was. But I wasn't going to say, oh, look, I'm not quite ready. But I didn't know that till hindsight. And it was 6 months later that I realised, and once I'd gone through the experience, and realised of building the strength back up after 6 months post-surgery, it was just a different game. Like I had those things back, and I think, when I went back into Shield cricket the next season, I was a much better bowler than I've ever been. But there was South Africa, and then missing out on the Ashes was probably a little disappointing. But that's the way it falls.
There are a few rocky moments on the South Africa tour, particularly the start and the missing the flight. Can you tell us what happened?
Well, I wish there was a really good story behind it, but it was just one of those things. You know what, in Melbourne, there was roadworks on the road. The Monash was shut down once again, and so it just... I probably left, and living in Mornington at that stage, I probably left about, 20 minutes later, 15 minutes later, and then it just hit a roadblock. I'm like, this is outrageous. And I was still just chatting away and on the phone as I go in, and hadn't really thought that, I'm under time pressure here, because I thought I'd given enough time. But it just got later and later, and then I just went, oh, my goodness, like this is really getting tight. So... I just arrived at the airport, and it was one of those mornings where flights had been cancelled. So there's people everywhere. And, it was heated. The airport was actually heated when I arrived, and in my blazer, my pants, 2 bags, your name's on the bag, and I've rolled up and I've gone, no, I need to get on that domestic flight to get to Sydney. And they said, no, you can't get on that. And I'm saying, no, you don't understand. I need to be on that flight. And I said, and when there's always a big gap between the domestic flight and then the international flight. I said, well, okay, you can't get me on that, get me on the next one. And it was just, no, you can't. No, that's cancelled. This is cancelled. Baggage was striking. It was just this perfect storm of calamity that then ended up being, okay, so I'm stuck in Melbourne. I can't get to the flight in Sydney. I need to solve the problem. And I guess that's what I've done all the time is how do I solve it? Well, what's the next flight that I can possibly get? I then coordinated a flight myself so I could go through, rather than going across to Perth and then heading on, I couldn't catch and get that route with Qantas, so I had to get another airline, Cathay Pacific. I had to go via, the way that I needed to Hong Kong to get to Johannesburg. I told the manager, I said, look, this is what's happened. I can't get a flight there. This is how I'm going to solve it. And it was kind of, yeah, that's all right. It's probably not the ideal start when you arrive. There was a few upset people. And I just took full responsibility. I said, look, I just didn't allow enough time. This is what happened. And I think it was interesting because there was the team manager, the coach, the vice captain, the captain, and they all
Clark, Tim Nielsen.
Yeah, correct. And I think they all wanted to, what do you think? You're disrespecting what's going on, and kind of said, well, that's what happened. I solved the problem, and they said, well, you better thank Cricket Australia for that. And I said, no one helped me. I said, I did that myself. So I've worked it out. I got there myself. I arranged the flights myself. I got there. I solved it. I'm here as quick as I possibly could. What do you want? And so it was Ricky that then just went, well, that's that done. Let's get on with it. I said, do you want me to talk to the press? I'll front them. That's fine. It's just a mishap. So that's how it sort of unravelled. So I know that they were probably looking to, tick off the naughty boy, if you like. I don't know. But it wasn't the case. And Ricky said, okay, well, let's get on with it. Like, the meeting was cut short because he just went, okay, we got it. You don't need to talk to the press. Let's get on with it. Just one of those things that happen.
So take us through once you're there now.
Yeah.
Once all that out of the way, the tour begins. You don the baggy green for the first time in a tour match. Where does it take us through the story?
Yeah, well, again, that was on an incredibly flat wicket at altitude, just out of Johannesburg, and very flat wicket. Lots of runs being scored. Everyone's filling their boots with their runs, feeling good. The batters are feeling great. All the bowlers are not so great. But, and I think, again, I'm putting in the maximum I've got. Every ball I'm bowling with as much energy and power as I've got, and strategy and all that, and working with Rick. And so it was just a challenge. We all copped a bit of tap, I suppose, me particularly. And but there was a couple of wickets in there, maybe a bit fortunate. It probably said, it's not yet. And I think that went into the first test selection was a bit of, not yet. And I actually got really sick there, and I couldn't get back out on the field. So actually, after the first day, being a bowler, knowing that I didn't have to bat for a while, all the buffet was there. So I just hopped into the chicken, whatever it was, the buffet food. But it had been there at a temperature which, was less than ideal. And so having 2 big platefuls of that actually I ended up with a stomach parasite, ended up in hospital and ended up on drips and all that sort of stuff. So it was a bit of a nasty one. But that was a bit of a setback, and I'd sort of been left to my own devices, thinking, he's just got a bit of an upset tummy. But I'm going, look, it's a whole lot worse. I ended up passing out, smacking my head in the change room. But everyone was sort of watching the tour game at that stage, and I was sort of came to, and I'm lying on the floor, and I went, well, how have I done that? Or maybe I've just fallen asleep. No, that didn't happen. So there were things that I just wasn't well. So I spoke to Alex, who was the physio. I said, look, I'm really not good here. They'd given some injections of, anti-nausea things and all that. But they said, no, I think you best go to hospital. So that was once I got back to the hotel. So I actually got really ill, and it took me a long time to actually get over that. They knew exactly when I went into the hospital. They go, well, no, you got this is a parasite. It's around here. Yep, we got it. This is what we're going to do. And so they sorted it out, and I was just lying in a bed for a day. But bounced back, and but it did take a while. It takes a bit out of you, you know, what gastro does normally, but this is a parasite that I had never experienced. So that was a bit of a setback as well at that stage.
Some would say the cricket gods didn't want you to play for Australia.
No, they didn't.
Bryce.
No. So, you know, I guess, you know, everyone's been through that. You know, no, maybe not everyone's been through that, but everyone has a setback. So I just sort of got on with the business of trying to get back amongst the group that I really didn't know that well. I'd played certainly cricket against them, but, you know, getting back to get to know them because, you know, I was preparing, if you select me, I need to know these guys intimately so that I can perform like I have done for Victoria.
What were they like? Did you feel like an outsider? I suppose you had Andrew McDonald there who did play those 3 tests.
Yep.
It was the Phil Hughes debut series, of course, when he makes the twin tons. Was it Ben Hilfenhaus made his debut, Marcus North? Yeah. What was that tour like just from a broader perspective, and what were the guys like?
Yeah, it was interesting because I guess the test unit was under some pressure. They'd played a 3-test home series against South Africa, and then they're rolling straight in. It's this home and away series. It was actually really good. I think they should do it more often. I think it's a great little balance because we lost 2-1 in Australia. There was some real, I guess, stress and tension. There's change in the team. There's change in the squad. As you said, so many debutants that.
This is also just after the Kadich and Clark incident as well, the previous test.
Exactly. And so there was some, I guess there was some tension and some, I guess everyone was a bit insecure about, you know, where they sort of sit. There's some new faces coming in. So that meant that there was, Nathan Horrocks was on the tour with me. Jason Crozier, as you said, had sort of been in and amongst and wasn't on that. And so from a spin bowling perspective, the fast bowling, Peter Siddle was bursting onto the scenes at that stage as well. Literally bowling with no fear, bumping all the fast bowlers of South Africa, which, certainly rolled up the crowd and everybody and the whole of South Africa, from the Prime Minister down to everybody. But it was an interesting time. It was very, very different to Victoria. It was where, you know, and that's what you're used to. You've come a part of that. You're part of that sort of leadership and shaping how things are. So it was very, very different. Victoria's strength was the fact that everyone was from all different backgrounds, and we kind of accepted it. We had a forklift driver from Ballarat. We had which was, that was Harwood, and we had Mick Lewis, who was a bogan from Heidelberg, and we had, and then we had guys who were born to do it. You know, we had Brad Hodge, just the most elegant player that I've ever played with and was prolific. And then we had a real country bumpkin in Andrew McDonald from Albury Wodonga, and who'd come down and was just knockabout. We're all different. We had a mogul skier, opening the bowling bean balls, Dirk Nannis, and I was in IT, working in IT, and had 17 years working for a major bank. We're all really different, but that kept us together because we accepted that we're all really different, and we had this dynamic that was okay and probably a little bit more worldly because guys that had to work and roll their sleeves up. It's a little different with the Australian team. It was probably less worldly, less knowledge outside of what cricket is, challenging with actually embracing change and new people and things like that. I think the change management certainly could have been managed better because there's so many moving parts. People are insecure, they're tense, they want to do well, they want their spot, and I think all those things created a bit of a challenging environment. Turning up late doesn't help when everyone's going, hey, hang on, you missed the plane, you idiot. All those things were there. But it was, I wouldn't take it back, but that's how the environment was. It was still learning a new phase.
Was there anyone who tried to make you feel welcome in the squad?
It's interesting. The boy from Phil Hughes was, he was the youngest, I was the oldest, and even just in warm-ups and things like that, he's just cheeky and he'd just be saying, you're old enough to be my dad and stuff like that. Just that good, fun-natured, and it sort of just brought you back to why do I play cricket? Because it's fun, it's enjoyable, and he had that air of just joy and fun and made the room so enjoyable, and so it was certainly him. Michael Clark, I think because Warne had said, no, you're onto one here, Warne had been supporting them. We'd had a lot of conversations before then, and we'd worked on strategies against Simon Kadich. You mentioned him before. We'd sat after a bowling session at the MCG where he came in. We were just one-on-one. Oh, we had Cameron White as well. So the three of us were just strategically working out some few things. We had a coffee at the up in the MCG cafe, and we're breaking up the paddle pop sticks you use to stir your coffee and moving fields around the table. We had a round table, and we're setting this, and you move that there, you do this, you get them to play this way. And so at that stage, no one could unlock Simon Kadich. He was prolific and particularly spinners, he'd just dine out on them. So I had a good success using the Warne 101 strategy, and I've only just recently shared that with Kat, and he and we had a good laugh about that when we were commentating together overseas. But look, it was things like that we then that were able to have a lot of confidence in. And so I think Michael Clark had then said, hey, we're right behind you here. Like, forget about all that. And he was interested not only in me as what I do cricket-wise, but he said, hey, you got a son. Tell me about that. He was the one person who spent time doing that. Andrew McDonald knew all that, and he was terrific, of course. That's how we were. And Peter Siddle as well from a Victorian perspective. But he was the one who was interested in those things. And I think it was because Warne had sort of said, hey, you're going to do well, supporting me and having me bowl well.
They go in with Marcus North effectively as the frontline spinner or the main spinner for the first couple of tests. Andrew McDonald plays as sort of a bowling all-rounder. And then they win the 2 tests, a great series victory. And then Marcus North goes down. So finally some luck goes your way. How did you find out about that? When did you know that you were seriously in the mix to play that test? And, tell us about it.
Well, I didn't really know, as you said. We've won the first 2 tests. It was a formula that was rock solid at that. Horses for courses, the fast bowlers, Andrew McDonald can lock up an end and do that. And the batters were doing superbly. It was quite an amazing series. So to be a part of that and learn the song, have it written out by Mike Hussey on a bit of paper, said, here's the words, learn this. And so I've still got the bit of paper tucked away. Little things like that. It was so special. It was really amazing. It really was. And getting to know all the guys even more. So I really enjoyed that. I didn't know that Marcus was crook and the day before. And then, so I just turned up to the game as I normally would, expecting to be 12th, 13th, 14th, whatever, part of the squad. So I didn't know at all that it was in the wings at all. When I went into the rooms, probably a little bit in hindsight, everyone was, the leaders were a little bit different. They I'd sort of just be talking normally. Do you need anything? I'm talking like a 12th man does. What do you need? That sort of stuff. And then we went out for the warm up, and they basically said this is an hour and a quarter before we actually play the first ball gets bowled. Well, it's an exciting day, and I'm sort of standing there going, oh, this is great. This is an exciting day. Well, someone's going to make their debut for Australia today, and everyone's there, and I'm like, well, who's this going to be? This is going to be pretty good. And from behind the Brute, the team manager, from behind his back, hands it to Ricky Ponting, hands the baggy green, and said, well, Bryce, and everyone sort of looks at me, and I'm in shock. Like it was a surprise party. It really was. I had no idea. Marcus is crook, but here's your opportunity. Said some nice things. It was a bit of a blur, to be perfectly honest. And so it was a genuine surprise party. I was lucky enough. I had some mates who actually my under-14 batting coach, Tony Stogger, and then I had a coach that had been involved, Peter Buchanan, and another mate, Mark Dunsford, and my now wife, Georgie, had just come over to just watch. I'm on the tour. Mum had come over for the first test, which was really special, and she sat with the Hughes family and watched the test and all those types of things. I wasn't playing, but it was great to share the tour at least. And so my friends just said, look, we're coming over, we're going to do it, and I, at that stage I wasn't playing. I said, I'm not probably not going to play, but they said, that's fine. We just want to be part of it, and they happened to be there. So I, was able to take some photos with them, had the hat on. That hour of warm-up, I don't know what was going on. There's photos of it now where I've just got this, the baggy green on my head, and it was a bit of a blur. And then we started. Thankfully, we're batting, because if I was out in the field and a catch went to me, I would have been all glassy-eyed, I think. But it was quite remarkable. What went through my mind was the journey a bit. You know, starting as a kid, having to work stuff out myself, not necessarily having, which I'm grateful for my local club, Mornington, for the mentors and the older guys that helped me just love the game. But, you know, not having dad around and, you know, just thinking about reflecting on those things a bit was then just going, hey, how lucky are you? Let's go and make the most of this. So I settled down. I wasn't completely rocked by it all, but it was a bit of a surprise, you know, an hour and a quarter before the first ball.
It's a pretty nice place to be looking around, taking all that in, Newlands, isn't it? It's sort of like a beautiful venue to have your test debut.
It was, yeah. It was. It's spectacular. And we had a few days beforehand. There was a bit of a gap in between, so you know we got to tour around and have a look at it. It's superb. It really is, and you know it holds a special place for me. And yeah, look, it was good to be able to do that, reflect on what happened, but you know I still had a job to do, and went out there once we realised the toss had been won and done, and we were batting first. Then I sat down and sat in the batting viewer box, and I sort of looked at who was opening the bowling, and Dale Steyn and Morkel and all that. And I thought, oh goodness, I'm going to have to. There's going to be a point in time today. I'm going out to face this. This is probably not what I'm really looking forward to be perfectly honest.
You change your mind now.
Yeah.
I mean, you did have that 50 for Denmark to call back upon, but the team doesn't make too many runs. You come in late in the day. What do you remember about batting against those guys in the end?
Well, one of the things that they had, and it was South Africa were probably ahead of their time, maybe. They had the DJ would play music whenever you know a bowler had come on and different things like that. Not necessarily for the wickets, but when they'd come on. And for Dale Steyn, it was TNT, and so it's the AC/DC. And you know, being Australian, we love a bit of hard rock, and so that'd be coming on, and you know, a few blokes in the batting room would sort of be tapping away and TNT. You know, they were doing that. Doug Bollinger's up the back, who was one of the part of the touring party. He's singing the song and playing air guitar and all that, you know, just being a complete clown. And I remember Michael Clark, who's ready to come into bat, and he's like, Dougie, would you just shut up? Like, just stop singing the song. Like, you know, because it was a trigger for everyone to know that Dale Steyn's back on. Yeah. We really need to keep him out. And he was at the peak of his powers. So, look, I did go out, noodled a run.
Bryce McGain, the 36-year-old wrist spinner, making his debut, comes in at number 10 with Australia in a bit of a pickle. There's his first-class career record.
Got a couple of runs, and then, well, the music came on. TNT started belting out, and I thought, oh, okay, they want to wrap things up. And, well, the first ball, I thought, because look, it's quick. There's no doubt about it. And I knew, you know, I'd faced bowlers before, Tate, Lee, all of those sort of guys, and I thought, well, Tate's difficult because you can't see the ball. It's that slinging action. Lee's a bit different. But with Dale Steyn, the guy said, hey, you get to see the ball all the way through the load up and all that. And I said, okay, just watch closely. And it's amazing what can go through your head in just a few seconds. And he bowled the first ball. There's a short leg and a mid-on and fine leg. And he bowled the first ball, and I thought, well, I'm seeing this. All I need to do is, with strong hands, just I can punch that through the onside. I could probably even hit my first ball for 4. Like, I had that time as this ball sort of started on my pads. I thought, I just need to work it through there. This is easy runs. And so I went to play it, and then it started swinging, and I missed it by about 2 feet as it went past the outside edge. And no one said anything. Like, if that was playing for Victoria State Cricket, everyone would go, hey, you know, they'd carry on. No one said a thing, and it was just this eerie silence after facing Dale Steyn for the first time. And the noise I could hear, and there was a bit of a murmur behind me, and I thought, oh, here we go. They're going to start cutting loose Boucher, Callis. You know, they're all in the cordon there. Here we go. I'm going to cop it now. But all the murmuring was the curator starting up the roller as they started getting their gear ready behind. The next ball, he nicked me off to second slip. They didn't even cheer. You know, that's how I sort of felt about my batting. But look, I tried my best. The second innings, I got run out. As I was out there when Mitch Johnson hit his 100, that was unbelievable. So from my experience of thinking, you know, how daunting it is batting, he is belting these guys out of the park, sixes everywhere. And I'm just like, how is he doing it? It was really his time in world cricket. And to be at the other end when he made 100 was a pretty cool thing, even though he lost his mind and I went to shake his hand and then next ball he ran me out. He was a bit overwhelmed, as was I probably.
No, but you're a part of history there with Mitch Johnson's century. But
Indeed.
You weren't in the team as a batsman. You were in the team as a bowler. So we want to know the details. Take us through from the moment you stepped onto the field, baggy green on, you had a job to do. Yep. But the conditions didn't really avail themselves to your sort of specific set of skills.
No, look, it was tough going. I bowled a little bit the night before, maybe 1 or 2 overs from memory, and had a ball that Andrew McDonald was at the other end, and there's a ball that just ballooned over backward point, and anyone else would have turned around and caught it, but Andrew got all muddled up. He enjoys that story. So I said it could have been a very different story here, Ronnie. But those things happen in cricket. So a close one there, and one past the outside edge, and so they're the things. We then came back the next day. We're defending a pretty low total of 200, and they really just settled in. They really set up camp. We rotated the quicks and moved them round, swapped ends and all that, and I was doing a lot of fielding, and the crowd are getting more and more vocal. They're drinking beers out the size of chicken bucket size. It was entertaining. There's plenty of verbal coming from the sidelines, and South Africa kept on their merry way and kept on building this platform. By the time I got an opportunity to bowl, they had I think they might have been, it felt like 1 for 200,000 really, but it seemed like I've been waiting a while, and then they were ready just to really hack in and go hard. Prince came running down and wanted to take me on, and again nearly a missed opportunity, not quite, but then they just really hopped in. So Riggy was looking to, okay, well, that's not working. We'll swap something else, but we, get ready. At the right moment, he's looking for the moment to bring it back on. And so, when we get a wicket, we'll get you back on. And, so he was instructional throughout the whole part of that day. We're going around the park here. They ended up making over 600. Everyone went around the park. So, but for me, it was every opportunity that I came back. I bowled a couple of good overs to Callis as he came in as a new bat. The platform was there. AB de Villiers got 160. Callis got 100. Callis scored his 10,000th run in that test, and the crowd let me know about it with 10,000 decibels of knowledge they shared with me. But look, it was tough going, but I'm not ashamed. I'm really, really proud to go out there and know that every ball I gave absolutely everything. It was a combination, I guess, of everything, and probably me, in hindsight, physically not having the range that I had and wanted in my bowling. But every ball, I spun it as hard as I could. I gave everything I could. I put it all on the line, and it was late in the day that I'd been going for plenty, and at that stage it was a world record of the most expensive debut figures. Not that I knew that at the time, but I knew there was lots of runs coming off. And there's a guy in the crowd, and he'd been going all day, and he was in the VIP area, and I'd been fielding down at this third-man fine leg boundary all day, going down there, and he was going all the time, and I'm sort of laughing and smiling, we got, oh, it's his 10,000th run, and oh, what about this, and AB de Villiers, he could bat with the tooth, all those sort of things. And he's going on, and even the home crowd were, the people around him started laughing, but then they sort of get going, this guy's a bit over the top. So I got a bit tired at the end of the day. I'd sort of been, just smiling politely through it. And I said, hey, Australia 2, as in we'd won 2 tests, you guys 0. And so the crowd then laughed and, said, hey, they put it back to you. And they started really getting on my side. So I felt pretty good about myself. And till late in the innings, I'd had another spell, I suppose, and been a bit expensive. And so they threw the ball to Simon Kadich, and Cat came on, and basically he took a wicket, and we knew what was going on because he was wrapping up the tail here, and he had a terrific wrong-un, and and everyone knew Dalstain had a leg break bowl to him. He did that, and everyone knew you're going to get it wrong on it, and he missed it, and he was out stumped. And anyway, Simon Kadich ended up picking up 2 wickets late in the day and wrapping up the tail. And so I went down to fine leg. They were 9 down, and this guy yells out, "Hey, McGain, Kadich 2, you 0." And I just clapped and said, "Yeah, thanks very much." But that was the engagement throughout the whole time. One innings, we were only out in the field for that whole test match. They put on a really big total, and we fought in the second innings. We put up a reasonable total, but never really got past. And as I said, there were some good run scorers there, not in the least Mitch Johnson.
So, you've incredible journey to get to this point, and then obviously it goes fair way off, far short of what you'd been hoping for. What's the aftermath like? I mean, you said you leave South Africa, the most expensive debut in Test history, and you're just about to turn 37 by this point, but clearly you hadn't been at your physical best. What's the communication like in the aftermath from other players, from selectors, the coaches, etc.?
Yeah, so it was basically the opportunity to, for me, when it finished and all the dust settled, I suppose, after the test, and I mean that like next day. Next day, the test guys who weren't continuing in the one-day series were flying back. So there's a few of us getting ready to fly out. And it was a matter for me to go, okay, I just need to go back and get physically strong. Okay, let's do this. Spoke to a few of the coaches, said, is there a chance to go up to Brisbane and, spend 6 weeks and just go and bowl or bowl the academy guys and do all that? And I said, no, that's not a bad idea. We'll see what we can do and work that out. We'll let you know. Look, we'll be in touch and be able to do that. So that's how I sort of left. Not much really said, not much of a review type situation. We'd won the series, I suppose, 2-1. So that was pleasing as an overall. I guess within me, that wasn't going to define me as a person, as a player, or one innings or one learning performance, bad performance, whatever you want a way to look at it. So I was fine. Within myself, I'm fine. Look, that's been the role as a leg spinner from when you're 10 years old to now. You have tough days, and that's okay. I respected the fact that who I was playing against, in a conditions that completely favoured them. So that's okay. They're not excuses. That's just, I respect who they are. AB de Villiers, Jacques Kallis. Jacques Kallis is the best all-rounder all time, and I had this opportunity to bowl to him. Would it make me better? You bet it would. I'd learn from that, how I went about it. So for me, it was just a focus of doing that. They were a bit concerned about, do you want to talk to the press? And you might have been part of it, Dan, at the airport when I came back. But they said, you want to do that? And I said, yeah, that's fine. I have no issue with that. And, they when they met me, they're like, oh, Bryce, good to see you. And, they were all somber like it was a funeral. I said, hang on, guys, relax. I've just played for Australia. I'm actually really proud of this. I'll get back and work and do all the things that I need to do. So it did come to fruition that I was up there at the Centre of Excellence for a period of time, for about 6 weeks. And gym work, bowling to all those guys, teaching them how to do their shopping. So there's young guys. Again, it's a young guy. Steve Smith was part of it, and they get I think they got a Coles voucher for $60, and they go to Coles to get their groceries for the week. They're living, in these apartments and all that sort of stuff, driving themselves around in vans around Brisbane to get to training and whatnot. And they just go straight to the aisle where, I love these muesli bars. I love this, and they're filling their trolleys. And what are you going to eat for dinner? And, yeah, not a bad idea. We'll get Subway or something. I said, no. Get over here to the pasta roll. You got to learn how to do this. So, I ended up being a father up there, I think, for 6 weeks, helping these guys get the right nutrition. But look, I enjoyed that part of it, but I really didn't know where I was. I knew there'd be obvious tension around, do we rate this guy? He's old. He's got belted, I know how it works. Yeah. So, I knew that would be going on. But the thing I could control, getting really fit, bowling really well, being up there, bowling to these guys, challenging all them, helping the other spinners. Like I worked a lot with Steve Smith for 6 weeks about his leg spin and how we're doing this, what we're working on, what do you do? This is what I've learned. Warnie's spoken about this, just sharing knowledge, and it was a really good environment to do that.
So Ash is coming up.
Yep.
You would have felt that you were a chance, obviously, being on the previous tour. How did you find out that you weren't picked on that tour, or were you communicated with directly, or did you just find out?
No, so I got a phone call. Andrew Hilditch called me. I was back in the apartment after a training day, and I was up in the Centre of Excellence in Brisbane, and just said, we're just not going to pick you for the tour. And I said, okay, help me understand. I guess that's what I'm always looking to do: seek to understand, and I had a view to sort of saying, how I felt about it, but where do you see it? We're not sure about the bowling. Whether it's runs conceded to wickets taken and attacking and defensive and all those types of things. So with those things, okay, what do you want me to do? What is it you specifically want me to do? And I'd had a number of those conversations, with Victorian selectors along the way. And so, I was kind of used to it. It was just, take wickets. Okay, righto. Take wickets, don't go for runs. Got it. Right. So that was that. So it was just a phone call sitting there. It was a bit disappointing. I felt that I could really have an impact in England. And, it was the tour was going to be a touch later, so there would have been some opportunity with some spinning wickets. As it was, there were. And sitting home watching that was sort of going, I think I could have contributed and helped and been a part of that. But it just wasn't to be.
Do you think, as you touched on there, Nathan Horrocks would end up being dropped for well, they didn't pick him for the 5th test. Do you feel as though at that time, particularly with Ricky, I suppose, very hard post-Warne, but that they just weren't they didn't know how to handle spinners in short?
Yeah, I think collectively everyone had a different idea. So even in the test match that I played, Michael Clarke had you need to do, not you need to do this, but have you thought about this? And it's all good meaning. It's meaning. It's from the right place. He had a view. Ricky had another view. We're going to try this strategy. We'll bowl one side of the wicket. We'll do that. And I'm sort of thinking, well, if we're not keeping stumps in play, or at least challenging that, it's kind of free scoring, and we're waiting for a mistake. The bowling coach had a different view. The other coach had a different view, and players were then just supportive. So there was a lot of different things, different messages, and everyone had their own type of view. So I think it was, maybe in the broader sense, even from the selection point of view, that they were grappling with that. And history will tell you, they went through a lot of spinners at the time looking for, what do we do? And then I think it just took someone to go, look, we just need to pick and stick. Like, we just need to trust that this performance and these attributes are going to work. So, and they did do that. And, well, Nathan Lyon's the beneficiary down the track. But maybe that's what Australia needed to do, is have the churn of us spinners going around. I know, and friends with all of them, to be honest, and catching up with them later on. It was, we all had the same lost sort of identity of, what they expected, how they were communicating that, and how different all the messages were. That then helped me for my coaching later on, what not to do, because everyone had the same story. Chase had the same story, so did Bo, and it was challenging for everyone, and they go back and feel a little lost. Going back to state cricket and trying to then bounce back, everyone felt a little lost at that stage.
Did you have aspirations? Did you feel that you were a chance after that missing the Ashes tour, to play for Australia again?
Again, within me, it was, I'm going to prove everyone here, I'm going to bowl so well, you're not going to get a choice, and the age won't be a thing. I'd spent a lot of time, as I touched on earlier, with baseball, and I'd be researching how to be better physically later. So there's a baseball pitcher called Nolan Ryan. He was an incredible athlete, into his mid-40s, and pitching no-hitters and things like that. Like, how was he doing? He had a book called The Bible, literally, and about his physical conditioning, how he went about that. So I got that, read that, incorporated those things, and started researching a lot of history around physical makeup. If you don't stop training and you keep the intensity up, you can keep going. Your body will just keep adapting and keep performing and doing those things. So a lot of those things after I got that setback was really focused and driven. So that was probably around May, that phone call, April, May. And then leading up into that Victorian season was around those things about no one is going to say you're not physically prepared. No one is going to say you're not bowling well. No, all the things that I could control, I'm going to be better than what I was doing before I got picked for Australia. And I did, and I achieved those things. But I guess the die had been cast. It was what it was. You know, that you're relying on others to do that. I think I bowled probably my best season was that next season because I'd had the setback. I was so focused on getting even better and performing even better. So it may not have been in the wickets column, but in terms of the way I played and bowled in all forms, it was probably as good as I'd ever played. But even from a Victorian perspective, they were moving on to the next generation as well.
I mean, by this point, you're rising 40, you're getting close to 40, and you win the Shield in that 9-10 season.
Yep.
And then you play for a year or two more, play a bit of Big Bash briefly at the start of the competition. What are your memories of that period?
So it was playing, Victoria had this incredible run in Big Bash before it became the franchise version of what we have now. So state versus state, which I still think is the most powerful version. Cricket has this intrinsic in it rather than having franchise. Rugby league has the state of origin. It's massive. And, AFL are going to bring it back. They're going to bring back state of origin because it's so big. Cricket has it. Like, it has it right there, this intrinsic state v state. And as players, we thought that was the biggest version of the Big Bash. But Victoria took it really seriously. There were trophies to win. We won 4 of the first 5 of those as Victoria. We had a number of players that were over in England who played county cricket and T20. They had the knowledge. They brought it back. We were playing to win. And so that was a good time. We got to play in Champions Leagues overseas as well, in South Africa and India. Like, it's unheard of. This is a domestic team. We're going around the world. We're playing against IPL teams. It was fantastic. Playing Shield cricket, again, still a terrific team, confident. We all knew our role, connected, success. It was terrific. But they were looking for the next generation, even though I was the best performed, not only spinner, but best performed bowler in one-day cricket. They were looking for the next guy coming through, and that was John Holland. And, we're great mates still. It's nothing against him, but I'm going to the selectors saying, well, hang on. This is my performance. So my preparation is this. I'm better physically. My performance is the best bowler in this. At that stage, the wickets were that flat. Everyone's going for 300, but I'm going at 4 and over, taking 2 wickets and, creating. So what else do you want me to do? I'm the best performed player. How can you not play me? So I had a lot of those type of conversations, which I'm sure Greg Shippard and John McWhirter, who was the chairman of selectors at the time, were probably going, oh, here he goes again. He wants to catch up for another chat. But I guess as long as it was going to last, this is probably as long as it was going to last, I was just going to make the most of it. Yeah. It's not that I wanted to hang on beyond my years or play an extra year, but when I'm finished or done, or I felt that as long as I kept on doing those things and kept presenting that way, and kept presenting results, that it would continue. But it doesn't. They just stop picking you in the end, and that's how it happens. They just flat out stop picking you. So I never actually retired from Victoria. I never said, I'm hanging my boots up or anything like that. They just stop picking you. And that's how it ends up. You end up going back to your club and enjoying that and playing for Paran and loving that. But that's how it stops at first class level. Well, it did for me anyway.
That's the famous Mo Matthews, isn't it? Even 30 years later, he's never retired from Australia. Yeah. He's still available for selection.
Yeah. Well, I'm still there. I still have the whites in the boot of my car, just in case when I turn up to the Shield games. Yeah.
So what came next, Bryce? So once they stopped picking you, once you went back to Paran and was still taking wickets at Premier Cricket, but that's not a career.
Yeah.
So that's something fun you do on a Saturday afternoon.
Exactly.
What came next?
Yeah. So look. That was always in the back of my mind. Obviously, I'm at 30 odd. You got to think what's next, and it was a real eye opener. Doing something you're incredibly passionate about in playing cricket, and it is your living, and you're traveling the world. Like, what an amazing experience! playing a test for Australia, which I'm really proud of. All the things that cricket was able to give to me in a professional sense was amazing. And when you do something you love, you want to go and do that. I could have gone back into the corporate world quite comfortably and resumed that. But it wasn't necessarily what I loved. I enjoyed the people I worked with. I had great teams and all of those things, but the corporate wasn't necessarily the part that lit me up. So I started my own business around managing some players and around academy programs. So some of that, a large part of that was obviously with cricket and sharing all the attributes for young players from 12, 13, 14 that can set you up for all the attributes to be a first-class cricketer. That was primarily the mission there. So I did that for a lot of years, and it was highly successful. I ended up having to knock it back and knock people back. The demand was so high for that type of program. It was a 3-year program. It wasn't every Sunday morning at 8 o'clock till the parents lost the will to live. It was really, there was some 3-day holiday camps, so we got a bit of what it's like to back up. So there's a bit of tournament sort of play in learning that, and skill and education about leadership, not just around, bowling outswingers, hitting cover drives and bowling leg breaks. It was really quite in depth, and from that it led to the next part, and I enjoyed doing that. We took tours to Darwin and started a tournament up there. That's now become the Strike League, as they realised that we knew we were guaranteed of great weather up there, so we knew we had a week. People were saying, go to England, but I go, you can go there for 2 weeks and, you play one day and, that's on a wet pudding anyway, and, it rains. So I'm not taking, 10, 15 families away to go and, have that experience. So Darwin was it. We were playing against their youth teams, and it really ignited a bit of support there. So I enjoyed that. In fact, we went to India a few times, based ourselves in the Karnataka Institute of Cricket in Bangalore. So that they have 1,500 kids, boys and girls, go through there every day. They have 5 squads of 300 go through. They're all hoping for a game. This is one academy of probably 30 academies in India. What an eye-opener for everyone. But the thing that changed, the guys that I took to that, and some of the parents came along as well in those tours, as much as we immersed ourselves, there was 5 days in the academy, there were 5 days of games. It was the day we went to an orphanage, and the guys had collected before they went old cricket gear, clothing that they'd grown out of from their cricket clubs, from their primary schools, from their secondary school. They just created this little bag, and they then presented it there, and seen the kids who had very little be so happy with that. And they were the moments at the end of the tour that all the players said that was the best day of all the cricket. And they were just aspiring, test players, and in amongst it, they all had the dream we all shared at the start. But that was their best day, to see the world and see India, and they were really appreciative of that. The parents, at the end of it, I was inundated with these messages from the parents going, our boy's changed. He's been away with you for 2 weeks, and he is so considerate. He's so grateful. And there were a lot of the lessons we were learning while we're away about, touring there is not easy when you're growing up. As a kid, it's a real challenge, and it's exhausting, and how we go through those days, but how we best support each other, and everyone has a good day because you're there making sure they have a good day. Little things like that. So, there's some of the things I'm really, really proud of, that phase. And it sort of led then into being headhunted into, I'm now a CEO of an international college, which we involve a sporting education as much as it is business, IT and hospitality and construction as well. But it's the opportunity to do that in a wider audience, transnational education, do all those sort of things. So it's got a bit of the business background. It's got a bit of the part that really lights me up in helping people on their journey and helping now industry partners do well as well. So it involves the whole gamut now. So I'm really enjoying that part. But, still Saturday afternoon, I still get out there and still play.
When you're not watching the Lions win premierships.
Well, true, yeah.
You're still watching a lot of cricket, not only as well as playing. You're doing some excellent media work for cricket.com.au stream, and then for SEN as well. Done a couple of test tours with you, and you're a great company. But just with leg spin, I suppose, some comments recently from Adam Zampa saying that he's just not sure that there's a role for leg spin in test cricket going forward. Do you sort of see that around the world to a degree? Do you agree Mitchell Swepson was tried and discarded pretty quickly? What's the future of leg spin in Test cricket?
What I know about leg spin from my own personal part, but he's also getting to know, the past legends and these guys now who I talk to at every Shield game. I talk to the spin and just, we have what are you working on? What are you doing? How's it going? And making myself available if they want to ask a question. Hey, what worked for you? Is that spinners are the most adaptable cricketers in the world. I had a similar conversation when T20 cricket first started with Terry Jenner, and he said, leg spin's finished. It is done. There is no way you can play T20 cricket. How are you going to, and he was about the classic leg break that spun up and all that, and, Warne perfected it, and we all tried to, copy it. But he said, that's done. There is no way. And I said, hang on, TJ. That's not the case. We're going to be adaptable. You don't bowl that ball all the time because it will get hit, but you've got to be adaptable. Bowl into the wicket, change your length, change your pace. There's so many things we can do. Change your lines, change all those things that we can do. And we ended up having a half hour, and everyone sort of just started gathering around. And we just had these different opinions. He got louder. I pushed back a bit harder, going, no, you're wrong. You're not living it. This is going to be. Spin will have an enormous impact in T20 and you can't see it. And I'm staggered you can't see it, TJ. And he's like, but you won't be able to do, no, you can't do it how it was. But that's what's happening. So the evolution, it's going to take the creative, the leg spinner who then knows, okay, what are the attributes that are going to make it difficult, and we'll expand that. And I'm sure if I sit down with Adam Zampa, have a similar conversation, I'm sure I'm always about that, finding the solution, about the creative, about the innovative. How do we evolve it to being outstanding? And leg spinners will solve it. They'll solve the problem. We're the we're the physics experts of cricket. That's who we are. We think like that. We have to. We can't just bowl fast and try and hit someone in the head and scare people. We can't do that. We've got to think our way through and solve the problem, solve the equation. There'll be ones who can solve it. There is no question.
Where's the baggy green, Bryce?
I have it. Look, I don't know why I did this, but it ended up just evolving. I've kept all my hats, but I've also kept every gardening hat I've ever had as well. So I've got this pile of hats. So anyway, the important hats are in a box, and the baggy green's in there, along with the Aussie A one, along with my school hat is in there as well. And I'm back wearing my original Mornington hat now. So it's just hanging by a thread. But so I've kept all those together, and honestly, I like sharing it. I don't tuck it away or hide it. Some people, putting it in a safe place is important. I get that. But, I'm quite happy if I go out and talk to, a club or a team and go, maybe there's a bit of inspiration for some people. Because I never necessarily saw myself, I'm going to be an Australian cricketer. I had the dream, but I had a lot of steps and stepping stones I needed to follow and find and work it out for myself. But I just see myself as a Mornington cricketer who just kept on working and kept on just trying to bring my best every day. And, I'm forever grateful for a primary teacher who had us writing that on the chalkboard as it was in the day. Always my best, would put it in our writing books, always my best. And, I'm sure Mr. McCormick just wanted us to do our math sheets and and behave in class and do all those things. But that just had a resounding impact on me from grade 3, grade 5. It was just doing my best at everything I do. And from that, I've now learned, well, that's a good part for high performance. It's high performance in all the things that I've done in my life, and cricket's been a major beneficiary, and I'm really proud of that. But still, it's always my best, and so I'll keep trying to deliver that. And if always my best can help as a bit of a motto for someone, and they put their hands on a baggy green and go, that's what they look like, that's what it feels like, even if at least it's a good wallpaper on their phone, it's a good photo for them to have. So I'm more than happy to share it. It's probably been on a lot of heads. It's it had a fair bit of sweat in it from me on that one or 2 days in South Africa. But it's I'm more than happy to share it.
It's a wonderful message, Bryce. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. It's been great having you on.
Always a pleasure.